I woke up in the middle of the night.
Good morning. I bought my cup of tea to sit out in my parents' garden this morning because it is a gorgeous, gorgeous autumn morning this morning. It's really sunny and lovely, but freezing cold. I think I keep seeing kind of like news headlines that we're having some sort of Arctic blast here in England, which makes sense because my parents were driving home late last night from somewhere and they said that the thermometer in the car got down to 3 degrees, which is pretty cold for September. It was one of those really gorgeous kind of sunny but slightly hazy misty mornings. All of the grass has got dew on and it's pretty cold, but it's not too bad. So I thought I would wrap up warm and come and sit outside, enjoy the sunshine, listen to the birds who are definitely making themselves heard this morning. So I might have to actually shout over the birds at some point. But yeah, it's a really gorgeous day here in the Cotswolds and we have got such a lovely couple of days planned. But before we can get into all of that, I don't know what I would have called this video, so I don't know how much you know just from the title of this video, but we need to have a big catch up this morning before we can get on with the day about all things houses and the house move. And I've got some slightly disappointing, not so great news, but then also some really positive, really exciting news that kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, let's just get into it. I think last time that we spoke, I had put an offer in on a house and had that offer accepted. And that was a house that I'd actually viewed on the first day I ever did any viewings on houses down here in the Cotswolds, which is pretty unheard of. I know my dad anyway was saying to me on that day that that basically never happens. Not actually a house that you'd seen any footage of. I think because I was just so in the moment at that house, and obviously I knew I was quite serious about that house, so there's just so much to think about when you're on viewings. So I put an offer in on that house pretty quickly. There was also a counter offer sort of almost immediately after my offer had gone in, so there was a bit of backwards and forwards, and then within a few days of viewing it, my offer had been accepted, which was obviously so exciting, and I think that's where I had got up to when we last spoke. Then, as you'll know if you've ever bought a house, there is a really long and boring, drawn out process that happens between the point of your offer being accepted and you actually, you know, being even close to getting the keys to the house. However, in the last couple of weeks, there were a few things that sort of cropped up along the way that started to just put a bit of a question mark over whether this would be the right decision, whether this would be the right house, whether it would work for me, whether it would be a sensible investment, because obviously buying a house is a huge decision. About a week ago, there was a situation that happened with the house and something that we found out about the house that just kind of put me in a position where I didn't really have any choice and I just couldn't go through with buying the house, which at the time I was so upset about, really so upset, because obviously this is why I kept saying I'm trying not to get carried away with it, because I know these things can happen like all the time when you're buying a house. But yeah, it just ended up being a situation where we just couldn't go forward with buying that house in particular. I was really upset. There were a lot of tears at the time, but now with hindsight, I realise it was definitely kind of the only choice. Like I just couldn't have bought that house. It just wasn't sensible. So we are no longer buying that house in particular. But the more positive and more exciting news that I'm not going to go into too much, it will all sort of make sense in time. There is a very good chance that it will mean I actually end up living down in the Cotswolds sooner, much sooner than I would have done if that house sale had gone through. So that's really exciting news, potentially, hopefully. And the other exciting part of it is that we are now doing house viewings again. I actually love going on house viewings. I feel like everybody loves going on house viewings, because even if every single house is not right for you, which of course it won't be, you get ideas from people's homes, you get to know what you really love in a home, you also get to know new villages and new areas, and yeah, that's been actually one part of the house hunting process that I've enjoyed so much. It's just really exploring new, different parts of the Cotswolds and villages that I've never really had a reason to go to before. And the viewings that I'm doing over the next couple of days, I've actually purposefully booked to view some houses in a slightly different area of the Cotswolds, A, to what I'm used to, and B, to what I was viewing in before. There's not really a particular part of the Cotswolds that I'm really desperate to buy a house in, because we've lived all over the Cotswolds and it's all just as beautiful. Other than wanting to be not too far from my family, there's no real reason why I would pick one village over another. So yeah, over the next couple of days we are doing viewings in a slightly different area of the Cotswolds, one that I don't know so much about, but I'm really excited to sort of explore, take you along. We'll do the usual, we'll do the house viewings, but we'll also go for some lovely lunches, some like village walks, and just have a good look around. That's the update, and that's the plan for the next couple of days. Starting off bright and early this morning actually. We are heading out in a minute on our first viewing of the day, and then I think we've got 4 or 5 booked in over today and tomorrow. So yeah, that's what's been going on. Slightly sad news about the first house, but I also know that things always happen for a reason, and I'm so excited to continue the house hunting journey, and I am so excited about the sort of potential situation that means I will be living down here much sooner than I thought. Okay, house debrief number 1. I'm going to try and keep these really short and sweet. So for every house that we see, I'm just going to do my pros, my cons, and then if I have a conclusion, like if I know that I want to put an offer in, or if I know that it's probably not for me, or if I need to think about it, I will let you know, just so that I don't ramble about every single house for 20 minutes each, because I probably could do that. So house number 1, pros. The village is absolutely beautiful. It's like a really quiet, sleepy village. There's not really, well, there's no amenities. There's no village shop, there's no village pub. And I know when agents kind of talk to me about different houses, they always say that as if it's a downside, but I really don't mind that at all, because I think if you're moving to somewhere like the Cotswolds, you're used to getting in your car for everything anyway. So a really gorgeous, quiet, sleepy, very well maintained little village, like really lovely houses. The house itself obviously is gorgeous, as you'll have seen. It's like a really beautiful, really old cottage. The garden is so beautiful, everything that surrounds it is so beautiful. The view from actually both sides, so the view out of the front, the view out of the back, gorgeous. Behind the house is estate land, so that will never be built on, which is amazing. So it's just kind of this really gorgeous rural countryside view, and then out of the front you just look at the village church and it's just gorgeous. And the house itself will be completely like idyllic, just so beautiful once it's been renovated. But that brings me on to the cons. So I knew when I went to go and see this house that there would be a lot of work to do. You could tell that just from kind of what you can see online. But I think even I had underestimated quite how much there would be to do there. It's kind of like every single thing, you're completely starting from scratch with it, and it's grade 2 listed. That obviously makes renovating just that little bit more complex. It can take longer, it can be more expensive, and I just think for this time in my life it's not when I should be taking on a huge project. Number 1, when I'll be doing it all by myself. Number 2, when I obviously, you know, want to get into the house as soon as possible. While Kenny's not here to help me, it's just the sort of thing I'd definitely be more open to when we are doing like our future family home, a house that we're going to be in for a really long time. You know, this is more of a house that I'd like to get into as soon as possible. It's my little house in the Cotswolds while Kenny is away. So beautiful house, but not quite right for what I need at the moment. Annoyingly, my next viewing has actually been moved to next week, so I now have this little bit of time in the middle of the day before we see our next viewing this afternoon. So I think Mum and I are going to go to Broadway because we love Broadway. A Broadway autumn trip. To be honest, Broadway is just the best place all year round. Broadway at Christmas is possibly the best place in the Cotswolds, honestly. So I'm going to head over there now and meet Mum, probably get some lunch, just have a wander around, and then we will go to our next viewing this afternoon. Okay, I'm just about to head over to the next viewing. I picked up a couple of tea towels from At Home with the Ruds. I love that shop, that is no secret. That is one thing I'll be very pleased to move closer to when I do. But yeah, we had a lovely time in Broadway. Broadway is always a good time. If you're visiting the Cotswolds, make sure that Broadway is on your list. I would say of all of the places that people typically kind of visit when they come to the Cotswolds, Broadway is definitely one of my favourites. But yes, we're going to the next viewing now. I also am trying to, for my own sake really, but have a good look around the village. So before we go to each house, I'll show you a little bit of each village too, because that's often the charm of these houses. It's kind of where they are. So we'll have a wander around the village because it's not one that I know very well, and then we'll go and see the house. This one is a little bit of a different house because this one's actually an old barn conversion. So I take it the rooms are really big, kind of almost loft sort of style, which is very different to obviously all of the tiny little quaint cottages that we've been viewing so far. So I'm really looking forward to seeing something a little bit different. Actually I think it was an old mill maybe, but we'll get the details when we get there, so let's go. Okay, I'm just heading back to Mum and Dad's now, and I think Mum and I are going to take the dogs out. Thought I'd try and do my pros and cons while I'm driving home. Hopefully it's not too bumpy and it's not too annoying to listen to me. So that house was definitely very different to anything that I've viewed before, very different to anywhere that I've lived before, and very quirky, but also really incredibly cool. So the pros of that one, the village again, absolutely gorgeous village, like really, really lovely. Another huge pro was space. It was really quite big. It was over 3 levels. All of the rooms in themselves were really big rooms, especially that sort of middle floor room with the mezzanine in. Huge vast room. I also loved a lot of the really quirky features about the fact that it was a converted mill. So in terms of what I didn't like, there wasn't really anything I could put my finger on. I do just think maybe because it's not what I'm used to, it just didn't feel very me. It felt very, like I said, cool and kind of a little bit industrial almost, and there's just so much space that I almost don't know what I would do with all of that space, especially while it is just me and reliving there. I think it's just not quite right for what I need for me at the moment. But such an interesting house, and I'm so glad I saw that village. Anyway, I'm on the way home now, and then I think Mum and I are going to pop out with the dogs before dinner, so I'll take you along with us. Go on then, girls. Come on. Morning everyone, I'm back in my little morning spot in my parents' garden. I've got my AG1. What is new? We all know by now that I'm AG1's biggest fan, although I'd possibly have to fight my family for that title because we all love it so much. And that is why I've been working with AG1 for almost a year now, but I was a customer long before that. AG1 is the one thing I am so consistent with. I take my travel packs, I bought them outside to show you. I take these travel packs everywhere with me, because me when I'm being consistent with drinking my AG1 every morning versus me when I'm not, honestly two different people. AG1 have a whole team of scientists with something like 139 combined years of experience in so many different fields, from preventative medicine to longevity to regenerative medicine to genetics, and all of that knowledge comes together to create this with over 70 different essential nutrients, your vitamins, your minerals. It has gut-friendly bacteria to support your gut health, your energy levels, your immune health, and even healthy aging. As an example, in a scientific study that AG1 conducted with third-party experts, they found that drinking AG1 enriched your gut microbiome, more than doubling the amount of gut-friendly bacteria. I'm such an advocate for gut health. I think learning about the importance of your gut health and then taking steps to sort of improve my gut health genuinely changed my life pretty much, and just changed everything about how I feel, how I looked, in every way. It truly is so important. There is so much research and science that goes into this one drink, and all we have to do is drink it once a day in the morning, and you get all of those benefits. If you go to drinkag1.com/Hannah Adkins, AG1 have very kindly given us a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and K2, and also 5 of their travel packs that I take everywhere with me with your first purchase. So I'm going to finish this and then get ready for another big day of viewings and exploring. Okay, house debrief. This was such a beautiful house, honestly, such a gorgeous house, and it's actually the first house that I've seen so far in this whole house hunting process that I could have just moved straight into, and I wouldn't have needed to make any immediate changes or really any changes. The way that they'd done the house was so beautiful. It was all very neutral. It felt like you could really put your own stamp on things. It felt like any of my furniture that I currently have, I could just move straight in there and it would all work. And would be such a gorgeous home. It was really well laid out. It's the kind of house that just feels really special as soon as you pull onto the driveway. It really was such a gorgeous house, but there were a couple of reasons why I didn't feel like it was the perfect one for me. So the first reason is that only one of the bedrooms is upstairs. The upstairs is really lovely, and it's laid out so beautifully because you have the bedroom, you have a dressing room, and then you have a bathroom. So it's kind of like the master suite all on one floor upstairs. That's kind of house that I'd really like to stay in for a few years. And just thinking about the future, and obviously it's no secret that at some point Kenny and I would love to start a family, and I was just thinking about the practicalities of having one bedroom upstairs and having a baby potentially, and their bedroom having to be downstairs. So yeah, even though it is just mostly for me in the short term, it would be nice that if we chose to, or if we wanted to expand our family at some point when Kenny comes home, that we wouldn't have to immediately move. So that was one thing. It was also slightly further away from everything that I know in the Cotswolds than I realised. So I think it possibly is slightly too far over to that side of the Cotswolds for me. I'd like to be a little bit closer to what I know, which again is something I've learned today, which is really helpful. And then also, this is just a me thing, but that house was a house that had all of its garden to the front, and even though it was fully private, enclosed, really gorgeous, really good size, I feel like I have some weird kind of feng shui vibe situation about gardens being all to the front. I really love there being a garden at the back. That was the conclusion on that house. I am about to go and grab a coffee, maybe a little snack of some kind, and then we're going on to viewing number 2 of the day. So let's go. probably tell from my overall vibe that it wasn't quite right again. But this is it, you know, I feel like to kiss a few frogs before you find a prince or whatever, it's the same thing, isn't it? You just have to view, and eventually something will come up. So a lot of the house had been done in a really lovely, tasteful way. So again, it was a house that I could potentially just move straight into, which is a definite pro. But there was still definite work to do in some areas of the house. The same as earlier, I think it is just that little bit too far from everything that I know in the Cotswolds. Also, it was on a road that was just ever so slightly busier than I would like, but again, that's a really personal preference. And then I think the main thing on that house was the garden setup, just the way the gardens with the neighbours that you had were all kind of split up. It was just a little bit complicated, so just not the right one for me, but again is going to make a beautiful home for somebody or someone and their family. Plan for the rest of the day now is to go and get some lunch now, which is good because I am hungry, and then Mum and I are going to go somewhere. I used to drive past this arboretum all the time when I went to university in Bath. I think it's called Westernbutt. That could be wrong. I think it's Westernbutt Arboretum, and I've always wanted to go. And we're not too far from there where we are today. I mean, it's still a good drive, but we're much closer than we usually would be. So we're going to take the dogs and have a walk around the Arboretum, which I just think will be the loveliest end to the day. And then I think Dad's going to cook us a big roast for dinner, which I can't wait for. I love that every time I've sat here over the last couple of days I've had a different drink. They're basically my 3 drinks of choice. My AG1, my cup of tea, and now my glass of wine, and water obviously. And I also don't drink wine every day, I will say that. I wish I could, quite honestly, but as you get older you realise that all of the good things in life, all of the really fun good things in life, some kind of trade-off for. So I don't drink every day just because we have to look after ourselves. But at the weekend I will always let myself have a glass of wine if I fancy one. So thought we'd have a bit of a debrief because obviously we've now done my 2 days of viewings that I came down for, and I know I've probably said, I've actually given you all of the detail on all of them already, so you'd probably kind of already got the gist that I don't think any of the ones we saw this time around are going to be quite right. They all had really lovely things about them, but they also all had things that just don't work for me. It's a very, very personal thing buying a house, and I know for a fact that some of the houses that we saw have already got offers over asking on them. So yeah, I just think it's such a personal thing. Oh, there's a hair. I also tried to show you as much as I possibly could, but when there are people living there, I just never want to, I don't know, I just feel like they need their privacy to an extent. So I showed you as much as I could with that being in mind. So yeah, the house viewings continue, but as I said, there are things going on behind the scenes and things going on in the background that may well mean I'm down here at least sort of semi-permanently a lot sooner than that, because I think I've realised that this house hunting process is going to take a while, and even when we do find somewhere, the chances are that we'll want to make some changes and just kind of put our own stamp on it. So that might be a slightly longer process, although a process I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to doing the viewings. I'm really looking forward to doing any renovations that we might do on any future house that we hopefully find. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's also nice for me to know that it might not be a really, really long wait until I'm down here. So Dad is actually inside cooking us a roast. It's a Friday evening roast, not very conventional, but we've actually always, growing up, we always just had our roasts whenever, midweek, doesn't matter to us. Any day, in my mind, is a good day for a roast. That's my plan for the evening, and then I think I'll probably drive back up to Cheshire tonight. I quite like the evening motorway drives because the motorway is so much quieter. So I'll probably head back to Cheshire this evening, and then next week I've actually got a pretty busy week. Not very exciting things, like for example I've actually been going to physio because a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that in the middle of the night I'd woken up and it felt like I had cramp in my leg and it didn't go, and this is probably not very interesting, but yeah, that actually really stuck around to the point where I had to go and see a physio about it. And yeah, it's wild because it just seemed to come on in my sleep, but my physio is incredible, and now I'm kind of working with the same physio on almost like a PT basis as well, just to make sure that I don't know, just feel like sometimes you need a refresh with how you're doing certain exercises just to make sure I don't injure myself. But that is a really huge side note. But as for this week, I'm going to leave this vlog here. So thank you for coming along on the journey with me as always. I'm really, really looking forward to just having you to share all of this with. I feel like it's going to be good. I feel like things happen for a reason and things are going to work out and things are going to be great. So I hope you have the best week ever, and I can't wait to catch up next weekend. Bye guys.
And I wondered how you're always right.